I debated Kevin from Radical Kindness, and these videos were engaged by a ton of comments. So I'm here today to address some of the more worthwhile comments and reaffirm my stance that university degrees aren't actually redundant. It's a mass number of redundant people who have somehow gamed the system and has therefore made their own degrees actually redundant. Okay. Cool. Alright, the first comment here, I actually picked it because I think it's really relevant to firstly define what exactly does mediocre or redundant mean. Because a lot of people might actually get really triggered if they have the wrong interpretation of what these words actually mean. So the first comment says that, oh, you heard that, he's saying most of you students are redundant and mediocre. And my answer is, yes, absolutely, right? First of all, being mediocre is nothing bad, it's nothing good. In any normal distribution bell curve, majority of people are going to be mediocre, right? Because if you take the average right down the middle, that's literally mediocrity. Not good, not bad. And in fact, half the people are going to be lower than mediocre. That's how any bell curve works, all right? So when you say mediocrity and then you pair with redundancy, then of course that depends on what exactly are you trying to qualify for. If you're just trying to qualify for a thing like, let's say, secondary school education, where majority of people are intended and designed to actually be in the education system at the secondary school level, then everybody is, of course, qualified to do so. But I don't think that's what universities are for, right? Universities are meant to be this peak, I would say almost at the peak of academia. It's supposed to be where some of the brightest students are there, and those who are really in pursuit of highly specialized knowledge or highly specialized skills go to university to pursue them. So by definition, universities shouldn't be allowing any and every mediocre person to enter. That dilutes the pool of talent and the pool of students in the university, which kind of leads me to the next comment that I see here. So there's another great comment, which is that, what's the conclusion? Why only 10% of uni students seem to qualify? Why not 1%, right? So actually this is really rooted in statistics. Simply because when you look at what we think of the perks of a university student should come with, for example, employability, getting recognition, getting maybe even local and international respect, all of this really stem from an era of Singapore where maybe about 10% of any given cohort are even university students. And of course, back then, there were pretty much two universities, right? NUS and NTU. So when you look at it that way, today, it's a whole different story. We're talking about maybe 40 to 50% of any given cohort. So instead of 1 in 10 people, it's now 4 or 5 people in any cohort are university students. Now, surely something would have changed, right? And that was a point that I made in the video. Why go back to 10%? The real number could actually be lower than 10%. But I think it's a safe bet to go back down to 10% for two reasons. Number one, historically, that is where we are currently imagining the perks of being a university student was tied to when 10% of our cohort were university students. That's the first guideline. The second reason why I say 10% as a guideline is simply because if you look at it this way, there are 4 out of 10 students are uni students. We're trying to aim for 1 in 10 like in the past. So if that is the case, it means that out of the 4 university students, you just have to be the top 25%. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because 25% is roughly the guideline that most universities use when deciding if they should hand out the honor classes. What used to be first class and your second upper, nowadays it's called distinction, maybe highest distinction. And why this is important is because when you think about employability, not all university degrees are created equal. You see, when you're getting a degree for the sake of it, there is no achievements, nothing special attached to it. What's really happening is the university is basically only endorsing your participation in university activities. They're not saying anything about your credentials and who you are as a person. That's why there's no honors and no distinction attached to it. They're merely saying that you have done the bare minimum, you have attended classes, you have attempted the exams, and you have taken the modules. That's it. This is not a strong signal for employers, especially when it comes to things like employability in such a saturated and highly competitive global market. On the flip side, if you belong to the top 25% of your university cohort, you likely will get some sort of an honors system. And this is where most people don't realize. Honors isn't just a word on your degree. It's the university staking their reputation putting their credential as an academic institution on the line and vouching for you and saying that they honor your ability to perform well. They honor the traits and the skills and the knowledge that you have acquired. This is an institution with decades, depending on which university you go to, even centuries of reputation, and they're staking it to vouch for you. And this is a strong, very highly valuable signal that can be sent to employers. And the best part is if you're on the dean's list or if you're some sort of valedictorian, that is the university saying that not only are they honoring that you are highly distinctive, but you are a cut above the rest. You are completely different from the rest of the crowd. You have attracted even the attention of the dean of faculty, which, by the way, they will be able to write you recommendation letters and really put one foot through the door in most interviews that you're going to be going for. Finally, if you really can strive for it, go for the scholarship. If there's one thing that can be more convincing than a university staking their reputation to honor you and say that you are highly distinctive, it is if the university or another comparable institution puts money where their mouth is. Because at the end of the day, talk is cheap, right? Money walks the talk. Not only are they staking their reputation by honoring you, they are even spending a massive and significant amount of money into you as a form of investment. If there's anything that could really signal to employers that you are worth hiring, it's to show them that a government institution or an academic institution has already put tens or maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars into you as an investment. And that's why the 10%, it's not an arbitrary number that I'm quoting. It's tied to, historically, where the best perks and employability of our university students have been at. And at the same time, it's also about how the employers view you when you are in the top 25% of your university cohort. Okay, and this is a good one. So this is by Jo. Well, she believes that categorizing students into use like mediocre and redundant, it's dehumanizing, because there are some areas where, generally speaking, you could go into like arts and maybe you might not get as much support and it might not be as encouraging as, for example, if you were to go into the mathematics or sciences. I actually don't think this is dehumanizing at all. I feel that being able to embrace the level of difficulty that a particular system requires of you and also embracing where your own capabilities are at, in fact, is very humanizing. Because as humans, we have limits, right? And embracing that is actually a massive step towards one's mental health and headspace. Because if you try to go for something that you are clearly not cut out for, and you have the wrong idea of how to really play well in that game, it's going to be really stressful for you in the long run. Let me give you an example. I don't want to make this an arts versus, let's say, STEM, math and science issue, because at its core, it's not. It's a normal distribution versus power law distribution problem. Let me explain. Typically in a course like accountancy or engineering, we're talking really about a normal law distribution. So this is like a general normal bell curve. If you're an average accountant or an average engineer, you can still make a rather okay living, right? But if you go into something like sports, something like arts, this is not normal curve distribution. This is power law distribution. And you can generally tell that something is power law distribution by the fact that it's very winner takes all, where the mediocre and even the above average don't really make much, don't really achieve much, and you have a few people at the top who really dominate the industry, right? You can think of this as, let's say in sports, your NBA players. They're really the few out of hundreds of millions of people. Or you can think of it as, let's say, arts, right? You have Taylor Swift obviously being one of those at the top. But most mediocre ones and those who are even above average, they don't come nearly as close as the kind of fame and achievements that Taylor Swift has. So it's important to understand that mediocre, once again, is not a bad thing. But most people are going to be mediocre. Even if you pursue something that you're passionate in, your passion has nothing to do with your competency level. You can be passionate about something and it could help you work really hard for something, but your end results will statistically likely still be mediocre, because that's where most people are probably going to be at. Now, on the flip side, it's not to say that going for math and science is always the safest bet, because similarly, if you go into things like mathematics or if you go into theoretical physics, it's a power law distribution exactly like arts and sports. Because if you are great at physics, you are not going to be the next Einstein. Being an Einstein is not just about being passionate about physics, being great at it. It's about being a once-in-a-generational genius, the likes of which the world hasn't seen in maybe even 100 years. Same for mathematicians as well. So at the same time, we have to acknowledge that if you go into certain fields and you have the wrong perception of the kind of effort, the kind of genius level intellect, or maybe the kind of natural gifted talent that you simply have to be born with in order to achieve certain outcomes, then you might just end up stressing yourself too much. And which is why the advice for most people watching is to embrace that there's a good chance, not saying everybody's like this, but there's a high good chance that you're probably mediocre. And if you do want to go into a field that is a power law distribution, you have to be okay that you're probably not going to achieve much from it. But you still choose to do it because you're passionate, great. But don't let that get into your headspace and make you feel like you are some loser and develop some sort of a victim mindset. That is not what we want to achieve here. So my advice, I would say, you're not wrong, but I disagree to label it as dehumanizing, because I take a very humane and very logical approach as to how to navigate these career paths and these kinds of games that we want to play in our life. Alright, Bastot said, why do we need degrees when probably only about 20% tops is actually useful? Well, first of all, I'm not too sure what you mean by 20%, but if you feel that 20% is in terms of like only 20% of the cohort is actually useful in terms of they can get meaningful employment, then you're absolutely right? And that is why I actually said that you should try to aim to be top 20 or 25% of your university cohort. But just because something is difficult and usually only the ones at the top can make it, doesn't mean we stop trying, right? In the same way that you start businesses, even though you know that 99% of businesses fail within the first couple of years, but you still give it a go. And likewise, if you pursue things like arts and sports, the odds of you succeeding might be even less than 1%, but you still do it. So actually, in comparison, university actually gives you pretty good odds. Yes, the rewards may not be as high as if you became a top artist or top business person, but at the end of the day, it's about expectancy value. Now, what if you're not talking about being 20% of your cohort? Instead, you're saying that 20% of what you learn in university is actually useful. I agree as well, but that is really not the point of going to university. Right? As mentioned in the video, but just to sum it up for you, 3 reasons why you go to university. The first is to organically learn the traits and skills that eventually employers will find valuable. For example, knowing how to play well in a team, knowing how to lead a team, knowing how to give presentations in class, knowing how to process information, how to clarify information, how to do your own research. And then when it comes to deadlines, you know how to manage your time well, you'll show up on time. All of these are fantastic qualities that if you just organically and sincerely go through the university route, developing these skills and these personal traits that you will inevitably have to develop when you are working towards being the top 25% of your cohort, then university becomes very, very useful. Because if you try to nurture any of these in the outside world, suddenly you're getting outcompeted. For example, in university, there's probably equal chance of everyone taking turns to lead a project or to deliver a presentation. But in the real world, you're competing against people who might be 5 years your senior, or 10 years more experienced than you, or maybe are just born way more eloquent than you are. And then all of a sudden, you are losing so much advantage that it becomes very competitive for you to even nurture these traits. As soon as you even step in there, you might be killed on day 1 already. But in university, everybody is your peers, generally we're all the same age. Capabilities-wise, it's all pretty similar as well. So that is a much more nurturing and conducive environment. Right? That's the first point. The second is connections. As I said, if you're born into an average family with no way of getting into the connections or even the radar, the social circle of industry titans, getting to university and doing well in university is one of the best ways. Because realistically, if you're going for an interview, a job interview, you might be competing with 100 other people. Some are more experienced than you. Some, their fathers personally know the hiring managers. How are you going to compete against 100 of those people? You can't. But in university, let's just say you're going to be top 20, the top 20 individuals in your cohort. And let's say there's maybe 400 students in a rather sizable faculty. you're really looking at only being the best one out of every 20 students. That is so much easier to compete at as compared to 1 in 100 in the job market, where you don't even know what are the experiences of the other people. They might have many years of experience more than you. They might be foreigners who are asking a much lower pay as compared to what you are asking for. So when the playing field out there is so uneven, you start to realize actually university is not only not bad, it's actually pretty good and pretty conducive in order to really help you get your reputation, get your name out there, impress your professors. And keep in mind, they didn't become a professor on the dean of faculty by being a loser, no-name bum for the last 20, 30 years. They all come with really stacked achievements. Doesn't matter if you're in NUS or in a private university, all your professors know a lot of people. And if you're one of the top 10 people or top 20 students that they can identify, and you're not just some face in a crowd, it's very likely that they will write you a recommendation letter. At the very least, your resume is not going to be the 1 in 1,000 that the company has to go through. You are directly put through to the email of the hiring manager because of your professors. That's the second point. And then comes to the third point, which is that we are living in a hyper-competitive world where everybody is starved for attention. Nobody has time to read your whole resume anymore. And it's true, if you go to any resume building workshop, they always teach you, right? The first 5 seconds of when someone sees your resume is the most important. How are you going to compete for 5 seconds attention when, again, there are people out there who are getting personal recommendations from their managers or bosses, or they have some personal connection? It's very difficult. But when you get the university degree title, and not just any title, but a title that says honors, you're highly distinctive, you're valedictorian, or even you're a scholar, all of a sudden this grabs attention better than anything else out there. You can do any fanciful resume design, but it's not going to be as attractive as a solid title that says you are honored by the university, you are highly distinctive from everybody else, and the university has put money where their mouth is at. And when you do achieve this, this is one of the best proxies you can have as a representation of who you are as a person. It's going to take you forever to convince someone that you are responsible, that you are smart, that you can lead a team, that you're a good team player. It's extremely difficult to do that in 5 seconds. But that title, that one title, can at least convey all of these desirable traits very strongly. Now, of course, this only gets you through the door and maybe into the company. Whether or not you actually get to be in there, your work performances, all that relies on you. But at the very least, you're given a chance to even prove yourself. Where if you don't even have this title, how will you in 5 seconds convince people that you have enough of these high quality traits and ask them to take a chance on you to even prove yourself? It is possible, but it's extremely difficult. And it's only going to get increasingly more difficult with AI, with foreign competition in a globalized world. And by the way, this has nothing to do with government policies, because most companies these days have the option of hiring people overseas, remote working, especially after COVID. You can wait for government to come and implement policies to stop that. But by the time that happens, the private free market is able to outsource your job sooner and longer than you can stay unemployed. Okay, and maybe that as a last one, I thought this was quite interesting because it's clearly very wrong, which is to say that we go university, at the end of the day, the government also gives jobs to foreigners. First of all, the government isn't giving jobs to foreigners, right? The truth of the matter is, think about it this way. As Singaporeans, this is our home turf. We grew up here, we speak the language here, we're in tune with the culture here, we go to the universities here, and government has also raised, right, the minimum salary required to hire these foreigners. If these foreigners are still able to come into our home turf, convince local employers that they are better than Singaporeans, even though they don't share the culture here, they may not speak the language as well as we do here, they don't even understand the systems or the market or the consumer market, whatever it is. Even so, the employers still choose to hire them. There's really 2 ways you can interpret this. The first would be that these foreigners are so much cheaper that nobody wants to hire Singaporeans, in which case, this is really just market forces at work. For the same reason, when you visit NTUC and you see some locally produced vegetable selling for $10, and there's a Malaysian variety that is selling for $1, realistically, which one will you purchase? I don't want to get into the whole 30 by 30 homegrown food kind of a debate over here, but At the end of the day, this is the free market operating. And there is a second way to interpret why jobs are going to foreigners. And actually, this is the clearest answer, which is foreigners are indeed outcompeting local graduates. Not all of us, right? Like I've said, the ones who are top 25% of their cohort, getting honors, distinctive, getting recommendation letters, generally, they're doing pretty okay. It's the ones who haven't really made it there. And I would actually like to encourage you to think of it from this perspective. How is it that we can have so many students go into the university level, attain a degree, gaming the system, and then somehow not develop the traits that employers are looking for? I personally believe, and I'm very confident in this, it comes back down to helicopter parenting and reliance on tuition. You see, since primary school, secondary school, and even JC, the last stretch before you enter university, a lot of students don't actually develop personal agency. What you think is them being responsible is actually their parents nagging at them. What you think is them being punctual is just their parents reminding them. What you think is them adapting, learning from mistakes, is just their tuition teachers spoon-feeding them information. And this has been done all the way since primary school, all the way to the JC level. And unfortunately, a lot of students do carry these kinds of attitude into the university level. And I'm going to be very upfront here. I went to university, I'm working with a lot of university study skills mentors today, and a lot of what's happening even in university right now, this might sound familiar. Have you ever sat in a lecture room where the lecture was supposed to start at 9 a.m. and then you see your classmates coming in at 9:30 and then they're bragging about how they only slept at 3 a.m. last night because they were out partying, they were out having supper, and then they slept at 3 a.m. or slept at 5 a.m. and they boast about how they only slept for 2 hours, and then the whole lecture, they're just complaining that they haven't had their coffee yet, and they come dressed in their flip-flops and their sandals, and then they look so tired, and then they've done nothing to prepare for the lecture notes, they've done nothing to prepare for the lecture ahead, and then they keep doing this for 12 weeks, and then only at week 13, they wait for like a summary lecture, and they cram last minute, or if the project deadline is this Friday, on Thursday night, then they start doing some last minute PowerPoint presentation, and they just cruise along, and eventually they still get their degree, right? Because they never actually bothered to organically nurture the traits, the desirable qualities that employers are really looking for. And unfortunately, they did pay $40,000, so the university will hand them a degree, and as I've said, the university's degree is nothing more than just a receipt, a proof of purchase, to show that you have done the bare minimum, you have taken the exams, you have taken the modules. But the university is not staking any reputation of theirs, honoring you and saying you're distinctive. And those actions and behavior that I just mentioned, I'm sure you can relate to it. And I'm sure you can probably even come up with worse examples. Now, I want you to imagine these traits happening in the real world. It's unacceptable. Imagine if your boss asks for a meeting at 9 a.m. and you show up at 9:30, or if there's a client project due on Friday and you start working on Thursday night, or you're bragging all the time in the office that you slept at 3 a.m. last night, telling everybody that you basically have poor time management, and then you don't listen for any meetings, you don't go to your meetings prepared. Which boss will want to hire someone like that? No one, right? In fact, many of these are unforgivable. You do that even once or twice, you're fired from the workplace. Yet, university students, so many of them, consistently do this on a weekly basis, and they still get their university degree. So at the end of the day, I think it's very unfair to claim that governments are giving jobs to foreigners. I'm saying foreigners are indeed outcompeting locals. And the main reason, I believe, is that many local graduates are simply being outcompeted because since young, they've never nurtured the desirable qualities that employers are looking for. And the last chance that they had to do it in a conducive and fair system was at the university level, and they squandered it. They game the system, they still get a degree, not an impressive one, but they still do get a degree, and they complain they're not employable. But if you really look deep down, it's not the degrees that were redundant. It comes back to my point. It's a mass number of redundant students who have no business being in a university because of their poor attitude and the poor way they conduct themselves. They have gamed the system through buying notes, tuition, studying last minute, cramming, getting by, somehow achieving a mediocre degree where the universities doesn't honor it highly, doesn't put money where their mouth is for you. And those are the people who, unfortunately, it's their degrees that have become redundant.